Last lecture, during our discussion of the conceptual level of consciousness, we considered the meaning, the importance, and the methodology of thinking in principles. We considered two prevalent forms of the failure to think in principles. One, holding floating abstractions. That is, abstractions that are held without any exact knowledge of the concretes, the facts of reality to which they apply. Two, being concrete bound. That is, attempting to deal with and understand concrete facts without reference to the wider principles which alone can make those facts intelligible. Tonight I want to begin by discussing a third form of the failure to think in principles, a form of counterfeit thinking in principles, which with varying degrees of severity is enormously common. Imagine that we constructed an electrically controlled robot which would perform various actions at the signal of different kinds of sounds, specifically at the signal of different combinations of words. There would, of course, be no consciousness within that robot to grasp and understand the meanings of those words. It would be manipulated mechanically by the physical vibrations of the words, that is, by a complex system of cues. It is into just such a robot that many people turn themselves psychoepistemologically. They act, feel, and think, manipulated and moved like the robot by a system of cues which consists of words, words held in their own consciousness or in the consciousness of others. They are manipulated by what we call cue words. A cue word is a certain type of floating abstraction. Like a floating abstraction, it's an idea or concept which is unanchored to reality, whose meaning and application is not understood. But its usage, the meaning which it's given at any particular moment, is determined by the social context in which the individual finds himself. For instance, a man who functions by cue words goes to a party at which most of the guests are advocates of the welfare state. In their conversation, they use the concept liberal. Taking on their coloration, reacting to the meaning and emotional connotation they give the concept, the man will himself use the word liberal to refer to something positive and good. But at a gathering of conservatives, he will use the identical word to mean something totally different, giving to it the meaning and emotional coloration that the conservatives give the concept. And if he's in a mixed group, a group composed both of welfare statists and conservatives, the meaning of the term liberal swims and floats in his mind. He doesn't know what it means. He doesn't know how to react. He doesn't know what he thinks. And he feels uneasy and nervous. He's like the electrically controlled robot being fed contradictory cues. The meaning of the words and concepts the man uses are not objective. They're set by others, by the social context in which those words occur and are being used. Their meaning is whatever meaning is intended or preferred by the consciousness of other men who employ them in a given situation. The definitions of others determine his use of words and concepts, and his estimates of those words and concepts. When he's talking to an individualist, the term free enterprise denotes a society based on rights and freedom. When he's with a collectivist, it denotes an old-fashioned vicious system of exploitation. It may be the case, however, that if collectivism is the predominant mode of thought of that subgroup of society under whose influence he has fallen, then he'll tend to retain the collectivist meaning of free enterprise, even when he's speaking to an individualist dissenter. But the dissenter will make him feel anxious, since the collectivist meaning he has given to the term is not understood by him, not sanctioned by his mind, and he doesn't understand or know how to handle the fact of dissent. The man who uses cue words to any significant extent must, of course, be a social metaphysician. No other motivation would permit a man to take his concepts from others in this manner, with no independent thought or identification of his own. His overwhelming desire is to receive the sanction of others by means of speaking, acting, even thinking in a manner they will approve, that is, in their manner, using their definitions and emotional associations. He makes of language not a tool of identification, but a system of signals telling him what response, what statement, what action, what opinion, and what emotion are expected of him. He doesn't know what liberal means, what it refers to in reality. He knows only that when he's with collectivists, an expression of approval is expected when that cue is thrown to him, and that with conservatives, an expression of disapproval is expected in answer to the same cue. He doesn't know what free enterprise means, what it refers to in reality. He knows only under what circumstances which response to that sound will win approval. And if you think of certain conversations you've undoubtedly had with people, you'll be able to identify this phenomenon yourselves. When you say that you're opposed to self-sacrifice, carefully and laboriously defining what you mean by the concept, and you get the reply, "You mean you'd never help anyone who's in trouble?" Then you are dealing with the psychoepistemology of cue words. The person you're speaking to hasn't grasped the meaning of the concept of self-sacrifice, despite your definition of it. But he's not psychoepistemologically concerned with meanings. Like Pavlov's dog, he has conditioned himself to respond with an expression of horror to any rejection of the sound sacrifice, and to react as if the alternative were brutality. Or if you talk about the economic principles of capitalism, and the response is, "What about the robber barons?" or "What about the sweatshops?" you're very likely to be hearing cue words. The speaker may not know quite what capitalism is. He may be unable to say exactly what the concept of robber barons refers to. He may not know precisely what a sweatshop means, but the sound of the word capitalism cues off what he's been taught is the appropriate response. Or if you talk about the necessity of living by reason, and you're told, "But a man has to believe in something," you're not talking to a man who knows what his concepts mean, but to one who has learned what is the appropriate response in his social group to the cue living by reason. Now this is what the man who uses cue words does in action, in speaking and dealing with others. This is how he uses words and concepts. What then is the status of concepts within his own mind? What meaning do they have within the privacy of his own thoughts when no one is throwing cues to him? They have the same status in his own mind as they have in his conversations with different sets of people. He permits them only a provisional meaning, never a fixed, unalterable meaning. If he should happen to be thinking about free enterprise, he doesn't have his own defined meaning of the concept.